Willkommen in der Stadtbücherei. Endlich erscheint dieses Buch auch auf Deutsch, schrieb die Frankfurter Allgemeine Sonntagszeitung am letzten Sonntag, am 23. Mai. Obama liest es auch. Nur den Autor kannte man noch nicht, dabei ist es doch bereits sein 8. Buch. Wer ist Richard Price und wo hat er die ganze Zeit gesteckt? Hier ist er.
I'm just going to be reading from Lush Life, which was just published by this man here, and called Cash here, which does not mean money. Some character's name. It's basically, in a nutshell, it's about a murder on the Lower East Side and the lives of the people, both the shooter, the victim, the investigators, how this murder reverberates into all the lives. One bullet changes many lives. And I'm not going to go into great detail about what I'm about to read. I'm going to read 3 small sections. And the first section is the father of the murdered kid, who's a 23-year-old bartender who was shot and killed by a kid from the projects who was trying to hold him up for money. And in this scene, the father has to go to the morgue in the New York Medical Examiner's office to identify his son's body. And he's accompanied by a detective from the Lower East Side precinct. The father's name is Billy, like Billy Marcus. And the detective on this trip, his name is Iacone. I can't remember his first name. And I'll try not to read too fast. When people say, you know, like he's world famous for his dialogue, that's like the baseball player is like, you know, wants to be well-rounded, but is known for like stealing bases. You know, it's like, I wouldn't mind hitting a couple of homers, but, okay. Besides Billy Marcus and Detective Iacone, the only two other people were in the ground floor waiting area of the medical examiner's office. A stone-faced black couple, both younger than Marcus, sitting side by side but not touching, the woman clutching a crumpled but dry Kleenex. And after 20 minutes of silence, of sitting there breathing in the faintly refrigerated, vaguely skunky air and staring at the large city-owned oil painting of a golden sunset that hung directly above their heads, Billy Marcus abruptly stood up, crossed the room, and standing with his hands on his knees to be on eye level with them, said, "I'm very sorry for your loss," sounding like he owned the place, then returned to his seat. A few minutes later, a powerfully built detective with the dropped shoulders of a boxer emerged from a side door, murmured, "William Marcus?" Billy popped up again as if goosed. After introducing himself as Detective Fortgang of the Identification Unit and nodding to Iacone, they had played on the NYPD football team together before Iacone blew out his knee and gained 75 pounds, escorted them back through that same door, down 2 flights of cement stairs, the smell of disinfectant intensifying with each step. Traveling along a cinder block corridor, Fortgang's extended arm behind but not touching Billy's back all the way, they were ushered into the room Iacone hated more than any other in the city of New York. Large yet barren, with only a single desk and 2 chairs, a long rectangular viewing window covered by thin metallic Venetian blinds was set into one of the walls. Remaining on his feet as the father was offered the chair alongside Fortgang's desk, Iacone watched Marcus tensely scan the clutter there. A photo of Fortgang in sweats standing next to a teenage girl's softball team. A coffee mug with "Never Forget" and NYPD superimposed over a drawing of the Twin Towers. And a stack of manila envelopes labeled in ballpoint with names, dates, and an initial shorthand that didn't seem as if it would be too hard for anyone to decode. Looking off, Iacone noticed a Polaroid wedged under a leg of the desk, a headshot of a middle-aged Latin man, his eyeballs bulging from their sockets like a horny cartoon wolf, the butt of a plastic airway tube still taped into his mouth. Then he saw that Billy Marcus was staring at it too. "Sorry," Fortgang said, then leaned down to retrieve it, slip it into a drawer. Marcus, when I say Marcus and Billy, Billy exhaled in a tremulous huff, then nodded to the long shuttered window. "The body's behind there?" No, that's not really necessary. Okay. Fort Gang teased an envelope from the middle of the desk. Middle of the deck. Isaac Marcus scripted in a looping feminine hand, followed by GSW, Hom, 10802, GSW's gunshot wound. Mr. Marcus, we have an individual here, the detective's voice sonorous. May or may not be your son. All we need for you to do is to look at these photos. There's 2 of them. And if in fact it is, you just sign the back of each and we're done. Okay. I just need to tell you that Polaroids like this, sometimes they're a little gritty. Gritty? You're not seeing the person in their best light. Okay? Are you okay? Fort Gang's hand on the envelope clasped. What? Do you want some water? Water? No. Fort Gang hesitated, glanced up at Detective Iacone, nodding for him to get ready, then took out 2 3x5 Polaroids, carefully laying them side by side, facing the father. In the first, Ike Marcus was face up, slack-mouthed, one eye peeking dimly from beneath a 3/4 drooped lid. Iacone wondering why they wouldn't at least close that eye all the way before taking the picture. You were most likely going to be showing it to a parent, and it made their kid look retarded. Marcus frowned as he studied the photos, as if perhaps the tattoos on the arms, the mermaid, the panther, the devil's head, were unfamiliar and throwing off his concentration. The entry wound seemed inconsequential, a 3rd nipple slightly off-center between the other 2. Fort Gang waited, watching his eyes. The second photo was of the son lying on his stomach, his face profiled to the left, eyes lightly shut beneath arched eyebrows, as if the radio alarm had just gone off and he was fighting waking up. His shoulders were hunched upwards towards his ears, and his hands were turned backwards so that his palms lay facing the camera. Billy took in this double-cut hair and the backside of the tattoo that encircled the upper left arm, a vaguely Celtic Navajo patterned band, and shook his head as if disappointed by the generic mystical horseshit, as if he thought his son had more irony to him than that. The exit wound in the lower back, once again, seemed hardly worth the hassle, no bigger than a strawberry. Marcus picked up one of the photos, then put it down. It's not him. I got to tell this one stupid story. I mean, just because it's kind of funny. I had a policy when I was writing, when I read all my books. If somebody's helping me out, let's say I was writing Clockers, whoever was helping me out, I'd offer them money. I mean, this is how I make my living, and you're helping me do it, so I will offer you, a consultant's fee. I'll pay you $100, $200 a day, It's your time, but my book. And I'd offer it to normally three people. Cops, drug dealers, and usually women mostly, who had single-parent families living in the projects of Jersey City. And the cops would almost always take the money. The drug dealers would sometimes take the money. The women would never take the money. They would say, get my son a job, or, take my son to a bookstore, or something like that. So, But there was this narcotics lieutenant who I was paying like $100 to get together with me, and I would just ask him a couple of questions, and so I gave him $100, and he set me up with this drug dealer, and I'd run with the drug dealer, and at the end of the night, I'd give him $100. And I remember one night I went with the narcotics cop, gave him $100. Then I went to the drug dealer, gave him $100. The third night, I'm with the cop again, and I bought him 2 drinks at dinner and asked him 3 questions, gave him $100, and he's giving me this dirty look. I said, what the hell? What did I do? I said, but I can't figure, cops are just, So I just shrugged it off. The 4th night, I'm back with the drug dealer again. At the end of the night, I throw him $100, and he starts laughing. And he says, were you out with Lieutenant Gelchin last night? And I said, yeah. He said, did you give him $100? I said, yeah, just like I gave you. He started laughing. He says, I told him you were giving me $500.